Hey, fellow patrons. I just wanted to make a quick video on how I go about making some custom wavetables on the Hydrasynth. So that basically means picking wavetables throughout the list, not using the same series of wavetables, actually picking out custom ones. Um, so that means doing a couple of things for me. I first set up a simple mod routing. So in slot one, I go to mod wheel and then I assign it to wave scan of oscillator one. So that's done by doing this. I'll just go through the motions here. Scroll over until you see mod wheel. Press this button twice. Scroll. Oops. You might as well just touch oscillator one button over here. And then press that button once and twist until you see wave scan. And you can turn that to max. And then exit. All right, so by default, you should see oscillator one's volume in your mixer set to 128. So go back to your oscillator one menu by touching that, and then up here, tap that, and you're going to go into your oscillator list. So at this point, I'm probably going to stop and think about what I'm building, because depending on what I'm building, it's going to limit our choice. As I mentioned in the review of the Hydrasynth, there are a lot of waveforms in this that are very grainy or very, mid-range heavy, or have a lot of brash highs. Sorry, I'm just trying to get that adjusted. So it can be a little bit tricky. It can be a little bit tricky trying to figure out what's best for what. I think it would be cool to build keys like that. I tend to build custom wavetables for keys, pads, and yeah, a little bit of bass. Now, if you're trying this on your own, I guess as a matter of homework, we can call it. I would try starting with saw and then evolving from there, because saw is such a rich, it's so rich full of harmonics that you can kind of do anything you want from there, and it will evolve quite smoothly without too much nitpicking through a lot of these. But just what I'm about to show you is going to give you a foundation of how how to navigate the wavetables in terms of like going from one to the other. It's just a few simple kind of tips and tricks. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Now you can preview these by touching the button that corresponds to it. So if I touch that, like I'm still hearing saw right now, but if I touch this, I'm now previewing whatever I scroll through. If I touch it again, it turns it off. So I'm touching it, and you'll see it kind of pulsating like that.
Right now, I want each of you to try something interesting. There's no trick to it. It's just a simple trick.
Over on my left, I have the mod wheel. If you remember, we modulated that, or we assigned a modulation destination to slide through the wavetable that we're building. So it gives you a good idea of what the transition is going to be like. So I'd like to go somewhere in between sometimes and just play around and listen for stuff. I don't even know whether we're going to do a pad or a key or anything right now. I thought that would be best. That way you can kind of understand the thought process, which is really what this is about. I mean, otherwise you're just kind of rolling the dice and picking random waveforms. But if you have a thought process and some kind of way to approach it, you'll find it a lot easier to kind of navigate through these and decide what goes with what. Okay, so there's one with like an octave harmony. So a lot of these actually have different harmonies, like fifths and sevenths or whatever it is. Not ninths, mostly sevenths. Fifths and octaves. I'll bet you there's one with like a hum in a fifth. There it is. Okay. Let's look for something a little bit smoother and a little bit more characteristic. Too harsh. You know what? Up here, I do remember some of these characteristics. Up here, there's one called, where is it? I'll remember when I see it. It reminds me of synthwave. I don't know what. Orlando. Yeah, Orlando. I just think of Miami. Orlando. whatever, Florida somewhere. These make a nice transition out of the saw. See? Just depends on what kind of dip and harmonics and low end you want. It'll always sound like a dip because it's losing top end in most cases for Orlando. I call it Orlando, but it's Orland. So if we're doing that, as opposed to that, that looks like it's sort of thinning the sound out and making it a little bit more, you know, oops. Yeah, it's thinning it out. All right, let's move on to the third one. I guess we'll stick with those two for now. Okay. Sometimes I'm just trying to keep a general aesthetic in mind. Right now, I'm sort of trying to think of like a trippy, maybe ambient pad, or not ambient pad, a trippy kind of synthwave pad that has a little bit more characteristic or a little bit more personality than like a saw. Something with a long tail that you can sort of play as a lead. So I'm trying to pick up stuff that sort of sounds like it has some saw in it, saw wave, but that has a lot more character. That could be. It's really harsh though. Now what I'm doing is I'm positioning my mod wheel like further and further up as I go select these. That way I don't have to be stuck just in the selection mode. Like, you know, and if I move the mod wheel while I'm in selection mode, and that's pulsating, I'm not going to hear any progression. So generally speaking, I try to just move the mod wheel up till I start hearing the change as I'm twisting the knob, and that's sort of how I work, because then I'm constantly able to kind of get a feel for how the progression is evolving as I pick more and more. So I'm going to turn that off for now. And also, if you haven't assigned these already, if you move the mod wheel to the top, that's the same as doing the you know, the solo preview button, so to speak. That sounds like it's almost talking. That's sort of like a formant or a vocal. Let's try. No, I usually, well, I do the initial scroll. I'm in solo preview mode. Here, I'm going to switch hands here. Now, since I just picked one that sort of sounds like it has vocal tone to it, I might want to consider one that I also consider to have a little bit of that sort of characteristic for the next one. Because remember, you want to make a smooth kind of seamless transition. You don't want to have dips and crunches and peaks and wobbles as you scroll through this. I mean, assuming you want to use the whole wavetable. Or maybe you want that, but for what I'm doing, I don't want that. I'd want more of a seamless transition. I have to scroll way up. Oops, I just hit the, oh well. I'm just gonna, okay, so I should point that out. If you hold shift while you're twisting, you can get all these other ones to jump up to sequential values going up from wherever you're starting from. So as you can see, horizon 1, 2, 3. As I drag down and I'm holding, you know, or as I scroll down and I'm holding shift, it's going to always be one up above the other. So yeah, I'm just turning those back off for now. That says Vokes. Maybe that means vocals. You can also, you know, touch back here and compare them manually like that. So this is obviously much more complex than this. This is going to kind of dumb it back down. So maybe that's not the ideal one. Sort of like Allweg too. I've used Allweg a lot. Now, as you know, I'm moving the mod wheel. I'm sorry I don't have a shot of it, but that's kind of neat if you want to use harmonies. I'm starting to think maybe we shouldn't use saw. I'm going to go back and maybe saw triangle. Horizon 4 sounds kind of nice. Oh yeah, let's use Horizon 3. So I gotta check with Yngwie. There we go. See that? Yngwie, Tronic 3. I think we were... were we on that one before? I think we might have been. That could be enough for now. Now, remember, if we have a long, movement to that, it might actually work kind of well. So let me show you what I do next with this. Oh, and for those of you who are watching this and were asking about the stereo macro, it is very easy to set up, but stereo is not a pre-built or preordained word. Go to macro, right? You press that button, it brings you to the macro menu, scroll down, and then you're going to see by default list name. You're going to scroll right, and that's going to become, whatever you were last on. And then obviously you just twist this knob. When you get the right letter, press this, and it goes to the next slot. So STE. Just to get a better idea what the patch is going to sound like in stereo, it's helpful to go in and make note of which ones these are and duplicate that into oscillator 2. Because remember, that's how I design a lot of the patches. So you can pan the oscillators and have this beautiful stereo image without using up an effect slot, without using the chorus, because I don't think the chorus sounds that great. It's useful, especially when you got other stuff going on. But okay, now that I've duplicated both oscillators, I'm going to go into the mixer and turn up oscillator 2. We built our stereo macro by going to macro assign. I showed you how to, spell stereo. All you have to do is, after you do that, is scroll one up, and then basically you touch either one of these buttons there and there, and you twist it until you see what the assignment is. Obviously, we're looking for mixer panning the oscillators. So rather than scrolling all the way to it, you can just hit the mixer button over here, and then press this button to scroll down, and then find oscillator 1, pan, et cetera, et cetera. And so then, obviously, I use the bottom 2 slots because it's just nice and clean looking. And I did -120 on each side. You can do -60, -80. I never go hard pan. So I do, by default, have init patches that I saved and kind of duplicated with a slight detune in oscillator 1 and 2. So oscillator 1 for me has cent of 2. Oscillator 2 is -2. You can make that more or less, but generally, if there's going to be detuning going on, I'm using mutants like the wave stack function for especially with mutant 2 and 4. That's like a common thing I use. Or I just program one of the LFOs to detune one or both of the oscillators. And I've shown that on a previous video. In fact, it was on the last pads tutorial. Yeah, I guess next I want to get this dry wet to 100, get this dry wet to 100, turn depth all the way down. Actually, I want to turn depth just down to a modest level, maybe 20, and we'll see how that sounds. Now, this is where I would want to start forming envelopes and getting character in kind of at least I want to get the patch reacting how I'd want it to react once it's finished. And right now I'm thinking a medium to long tail. explain why in a minute here. Let's get some stereo image now that we got all that stuff set up. Okay. Double check something. Horizon 3, Orlando 6, Esquire 3. If it doesn't sound right in your left and right ear, I always double check. And okay, we are good. This might help to get these, you know, pretty close to being even. Okay, so that's one way we could do it. Tell you what, just for the heck of it, let's build a macro right here and scroll to the bottom and just twist back to list a name. And let's find the word, I think it's stank. I don't know why they don't have stack in here, but I'm going to change it to stack. And then you can change it to stack by just twisting the knob right here. And then just edit it. There. And I'm going to have mutants 2 and mutant 4 per, you know, one per oscillator. I'm going to have the depth able to be controlled here. So I'm going to put this up to like, I don't know, 20. And oopsies, there we go. And I'm going to go back in here and turn the you know, the kind of the regular amount to maybe 12, maybe 13, I don't know, 12.8. There we go. So at any given time, if I want to hear how it sounds with a little bit more stacking. Also, if we need to ever modulate the wave stack depth, we now have both destinations consolidated into one macro. And keep in mind, if we're on firmware 1.5, you can modulate macros in that firmware, so which we are on firmware 1.5. Okay, so obviously we're not going to just leave the let's get back to the wavetables. We're not going to just leave it at the mod wheel. You know, the mod wheel is not going to be the only thing that controls it. So let's use trusty old envelope 3, and I'm going to zoom out here for it. It's a little better, right? Yeah. By the way, if you keep tapping envelope 3, it goes through all the pages, which is kind of a nice feature. This is where I want to talk about envelope timing. This goes back to the whole envelope lesson. I hope you checked that out. It's a long video, but it's definitely worth watching because it has a lot that, you know, I talk about why I use envelopes certain ways, and this is going to be right, you know, this is going to tie right in with that. So I already know kind of what I want in this. I want a quick attack shooting up and then a dip down. Well, in theory, I want this. I'm not sure how it's going to sound. And oops. If I'm holding notes, I'm going to have to figure out where we're going to have sustain. But when I let go of notes, I'm going to want to hear some travel going back through the wavetable. You get what I'm saying? So if you have a really long release, it's not going to even, you know, we're not going to have a tail that long. We're not going to have a 9 or even a 4-second tail per se, because, well, we might actually, but this has to at least relatively be, you know, geared towards accommodating this release time. So that's a little bit short. I think I could just go exponential up to 38 and push this up to like 3. Okay, that's solid. Go to envelope 3. That looks okay for now, right? Maybe not 10 seconds. Let's do 2.7 per hit. Okay. I just That's me. That's what I know. That's typically a shape I used a lot for making keys and or pads with movement in them. So I just designed that. You could leave that blank if you wanted, but most importantly, we need to set up a mod routing to our wavetable. If you want to use these 2 free slots, you can, or you can start on a new page if you're a stickler for organization. So I'm going to go to envelope 3, and I touch down, and I'm going to find the destination, which is oscillator 1. Scroll down, wave scan, and we're going to put it up to, I think, how many of the 8? We did 6. So I'm going to want to have it at least at, up in the higher numbers because, but you don't have to max this out because we're not using the last 3 wavetables. So it's kind of pointless. So you'd want to have it as close to max and accurate as possible. Now, here's something you can do to figure that out, actually. What I did was kind of counterintuitive in that sense. So why don't we solo oscillator 1, right? Let's keep this as is. Let's keep this at like 90, right? Exit out, go to our mixer, and we're going to solo oscillator 1. Hit that button, press oscillator 1. And it's only on the right ear, obviously, right now. Or is it? Maybe I have my inputs reversed? Yeah, I might. Oh, well. Oh, right, because I plugged this back in from the other day. So, yeah, I'd probably have left and right swapped, but oh, well. Turn your center image, or your stereo image back to center. Ah, you can already hear there's movement. It's sort of how I like that to sound. But I need to show you this anyways. So let's just remember that, generally speaking. In fact, let's hit exit and just hit save. We'll save this init patch where we're at. I'm not going to name it yet. Perfect. It's saved. Envelope 3. Okay, so the thing I'm going to show you is boost up your sustain to max. Now you will know the true range of your modulation assignment. But before we do that, why don't we just move the mod wheel all the way up to max to see what the last wavetable sounds like. There it is. Now, if I move this down with the mod wheel maxed out, we should still hear the same exact sound. This has no effect on it because the mod wheel is that much modulating it. If we pull the mod wheel down and we turn this up to max, it'll also sound the same because now this is maxing it out. So when I turn this down, we're still going to hear the last wavetable until we get to about maybe 80 or 70. Or, I don't know, I'm terrible at math, so it's going to be down near 80, though. No, 60, look at that. I'm that bad at math. So we're maxed out right around 70, just to be safe. 70. 71. That means as soon as I let go, that progression begins right from the top instead of it being maxed out. And if I let go of the note, it's going to take longer to go through. Well, actually, let me correct myself here. If, and this is an if you have wavetables assigned here, extras, for example, of Tronic 3, that is what will happen. I believe since we have these turned off, it will make no difference. I cannot remember whether or not it figures it out for you and it's relative. So basically what I'm trying to figure out is when this goes up to 128, is it already realizing that we've only used this many, just over half? I want to say no, and the way we can find that out is by just doing exactly what I just did. Okay, you see how it took like a second? Well, here, you got to see my hand doing this to really understand. It'll take a second for it to start dipping back down through the wavetables when I let go. It's about a half-second delay. But let's try that when we have this dialed down to 70. And it should, in theory, be instantaneous. Like, it should react instantaneously when I let go. And it did. Okay, so then it does count. oscillator 1, even if these are turned off. And that is a good thing to note, and that is something I am always back and forth, can't remember, and I don't often want to do what I just did to find it out because I'm so deep into a patch sometimes that it's just too much risk of complicating crap. So yeah, let's make sure we keep it relative to the amount we're to the amount we're diving into this wavetable space. Now that we have that figured out, we can just duplicate that same assignment to oscillator 2. So I highlighted that, and then I pressed envelope 3, oscillator 2, wave scan 70.8. If you want to make it a little bit different, that can help the stereo image slightly. So maybe 71, well, 69.5. Oh, and don't forget, we just soloed oscillator 1, so we have to turn that off. And we have to turn up our stereo image again, just to help us out and get us a preview of what the grand picture, the grand image is going to sound like. That is one of the cookie cutter major OSC kind of formulas right there that I just went through. That's it. I've stopped there at several patches for Ignition 1 and Ignition 2. Generally, I don't like to do that because unless it's absolutely majestic and I don't want to risk screwing it up. I do like to add a lot more stuff to it. I don't think we're going to do that for this video. I think we're going to call it a done deal. Yeah, I like it. Just remember that don't necessarily stop here. Use what you've learned so far. There's going to be an upcoming video. I'm going to talk about the advanced modulation routings. So after you watch that, I'm going to title it Advanced Expression Routings. There we go. After you've watched that, come watch this again and apply what you've learned to enhance this that we just built. I'm going to hit save here, and we're going to call this WT Sherpa, because I was your Sherpa building a wavetable. Or maybe I'll just put example. That's probably a little easier if I just put example. Wavetable, what the hell happened? Oh, right. I'm going to put wavetable build. Here we go. Category, keys. What color? I like blue. Save. Okay, I'll post that in the description or, attach it. It'll be part of I'm just going to put it into the same bank as before. So we have some kind of, what do you call it? Kind of a sense of a history. So you'll have the other ones that I've handed out, hopefully. So that way you can just, bring it into the new bank and it'll look the same or look similar. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, post up in the comments. Happy to answer them. Yeah. And I think the next video we're going to do advanced expression routings first. Then I'm going to go into the big pad tutorial because I think if we know about advanced expression routings beforehand, it's going to be a little easier to it'll be a little bit easier to move quick through the pad tutorials because there's a lot I want to show. Okay, I'll see you next time.